Hello and welcome once again to Bread of Life, a daily devotional program which each week features a different area pastor. Our speaker for this week is Pastor Jared Eaton of West Haven.
Shalom, friends. This is Jared Eaton from Joy of Israel, Messianic Jewish Congregation in West Haven. I'd like to welcome you back to this series on Jesus from a Jewish perspective, where we look at some familiar stories from the Gospels from a Jewish point of view and gain a new perspective and understanding of them. Today, I'd like to take a look at the story of the death and resurrection of Lazarus, found in John chapter 11. In verses 5 and 6 we read, "Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days." When I read this story and I hear that Lazarus is sick and dying, and that Jesus loves him and can save him, you would expect Jesus to drop everything he's doing and run to Bethany to save his friend. But instead, when Jesus gets the bad news, he just goes about his business. He doesn't get moving until 2 days later, after Lazarus is already dead. Why did Jesus delay? Why didn't he rush to his beloved friend's side in his hour of greatest need? The scriptures give us a partial answer in verse 14. Jesus tells his disciples that Lazarus has passed away, and he says, "Lazarus is dead. I'm glad for your sake I wasn't there, so that you may believe." Jesus clearly has a goal here, something greater that he wants to accomplish. But what is it? He says that he wants his disciples to believe. Believe what? An answer emerges when one looks deeper into Jewish traditions of Jesus' time. Jewish tradition teaches that God is the source of all strength. Any ability that we possess, any wealth, any wisdom, any physical power, it all comes from him. He is the wellspring of all strength, and he has chosen to share some of that strength with us, empowering us to do what we cannot on our own. But as much strength as God gives us, Jewish tradition says that there is some power which God has reserved for himself. It is written in Talmud that there are 3 keys maintained in the hand of the Holy One, which were not transmitted to an intermediary. In other words, there are 3 acts of power, which are so great that God will not perform them through a messenger, like a prophet or a miracle worker, but which he only does by his own hand. The first of these miracles is that he alone causes the wind to blow and the rain to fall. The second is that God alone decides when children are conceived and born. And the third and greatest key is that God alone has the power to bring the dead to life. When we see the dead being restored to life, it will be such a great miracle that all humanity will be convicted that only God himself could be the one doing it. 3 keys of power held only in the hand of God himself. The book of John, more than any of the other Gospels, is about Jesus establishing his identity, not just as the Messianic king from David's line, but establishing his divinity and his identity as God himself. The miracles that Jesus performed were a witness to his identity. His miracles all had a deeper purpose, and throughout the Gospels we see Jesus take hold of all 3 of the keys of power. When a storm raged around them and all the disciples cowered in fear, Jesus took command of the wind and rains and calmed the storm, something that only God was able to do. The scriptures are filled with the tales of miraculous births, whether it be Sarah with Isaac, Rachel with Joseph, or Hannah with Samuel. But the story of Jesus' miraculous birth defies comprehension and declares that Jesus holds the key to creating life in his hand. And now, in John chapter 11, just a few days before he is to suffer, Jesus' identity is still in question, maybe even among his own followers. In just the previous chapter, the Pharisees attempt to stone Jesus, saying, "You, a mere man, are claiming to be God." How does Jesus respond in the face of this doubt and distrust? He responds by taking hold of the final key, the key of the resurrection of the dead. Jesus hears that his friend Lazarus is sick, and part of him wants to run to Bethany and save his friend from suffering. Jesus loved Lazarus. I can only imagine that Jesus had to keep a strong face for those days, but when he finally arrived at the home of Mary and Martha, he could no longer contain his emotion. He was distraught, and he openly wept for his friend. Jesus could have come in time and healed Lazarus, but instead he stays where he is for 2 more days, stays until Lazarus has passed, so that when he does arrive, he can perform a miracle so astounding that no one who witnesses can deny who Jesus is, and that no one can deny that Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. Join me next time to learn more about Jesus from a Jewish perspective, and to learn more about Messianic Judaism, visit us on the web at cometojoy.org.
You've been listening to Pastor Jared Eaton of West Haven, and this has been Bread of Life, a daily devotional program produced by WIHS featuring pastors from throughout our listening area.